Hey everyone, I'm going to be doing another video today since I have the time. I figured why not, and I really want to try to wrap up Austen in August before August is over, so I'm getting there. Today I'm going to be talking about Emma by Jane Austen, so the book and the various adaptations of it. We will start with the book. This is probably my second favorite Jane Austen novel after only Persuasion. The first time I read it, I actually had to read it for summer reading for school, and I wasn't very fond of it. I just found Emma really annoying. Mr. Knightley was like naggy and bossy. I couldn't understand the whole romance there. But after I reread it a couple of years later, I ended up really loving it, so much so that it's my second favorite Austen. Emma, in the beginning, I do find irritating, but I think I really am able to appreciate her character growth more, how she realizes the error of her ways. In the beginning, she's very much similar. I like to compare Elizabeth Bennet to her, where Lizzie Bennet in the beginning was very sure of her first impressions, how they're always right, and she's a great judge of character. That's not really dwelled upon as much. Emma, very much the same way, but even worse. She thinks that, she knows everyone how people really are, and she's a great matchmaker, and she's actually terrible. So I find it really amusing to read about basically how Emma is wrong about nearly everything, and again she learns the error of her ways in the end. I absolutely love Mr. Knightley now. He really lives up to his name of the knight, and I'm better able to appreciate their romance. I also love, it's got kind of like a mystery element to it, but it's about romance rather than crime that's trying to be figured out. There's like clues and hints of who the couples are going to be, like for example, who sent Jane Fairfax the piano, and that kind of thing that I find really just fun to read about, even though I know all of the answers now. I wish I had been able to appreciate all of that the first time I read it, because now, there's no element of surprise. But I still love it, and I give this a 5 out of 5. So on to the Emma adaptations. There are 4 that are currently available to view, and I own all of them on DVD. This is not counting some of the modernized versions, because I'm going to do a separate video on those, like Clueless, etc. The first version that I have is a BBC miniseries. This was filmed in 1972, and it stars Dora Godwin as Emma and John Carson as Mr. Knightley. This is probably my least favorite version of Emma, as is custom with all of the TV versions from the 1980s and earlier. It's got the usual subpar production values and stagey acting and all of that kind of stuff. That's not the reason that this bothers me though, because I'm still able to enjoy a lot of other adaptations from that time. Rather, I find this kind of boring and unappealing on the whole. Even though it's a miniseries and it should have time to flesh out the story, it randomly changes things that just like leave me confused. Like, why was that change? It seems to be for no rhyme or reason. Nothing really big, just minor stuff all over the place. But mainly, my main problem with it is with the 2 leads. Dora Godwin as Emma. Although she was actually only 22 years old, she seemed to be much older, at least in her 30s. It was mostly like she talked in this really clipped, like aristocratic accent. It really sounded fake to me and just bad. I couldn't relate to the character. She seemed emotionless, heartless, and she was so very artificial. Like, the same John Carson as Mr. Knightley I thought was okay, but he was a little bit too old, and he seemed like he really was just like very fatherly towards Emma. I didn't get the chemistry between them at all. Most of the cast otherwise was just kind of blah and ho-hum. The only ones that actually made any impression on me were the negative ones, so that's not a very good thing. It was just alright. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. The next version that I have is the 1996 film with Gwyneth Paltrow. It can be kind of confusing because there were actually 2 versions of Emma in 1996 for some reason or other. I guess Emma was popular that year. This is the movie version with Gwyneth Paltrow as the lead, and also stars Jeremy Northam as Mr. Knightley and a lot of other big name actors and actresses as well. This is definitely the chocolate box version of Emma. I like to say It stresses the lighter side of the story, all the comedic, light elements, and all of the happy-go-lucky kind of stuff. Because it's a movie, it's shorter, a lot had to be cut for time and condensed. Mainly the Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill storyline was the one to be hurt the most in this. I adored her when I saw it, and I still love Gwyneth Paltrow as Emma. I think she's my favorite, gives my favorite performance as Emma ever. Like, she's very ladylike, but you can see, like, her immaturity and foolishness, yet she's still very, very ladylike and proper in this, which I really love. Jeremy Northam plays Mr. Knightley, and he was very gorgeous. Maybe a little bit too suave, though, is the thing. Like, he's so obviously in love with Emma from the beginning. So obviously the romantic lead, because Mr. Knightley is not supposed to be, obviously, you know, the romantic hero of the story. But that's okay, he really matched well with Gwyneth, and it's a great film to watch. Again, the Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill storyline was totally butchered and ruined in this. Toni Collette as Harriet Smith was awful. Cringeworthy performance. I don't know what they were going for with that. But on the whole, I really like it. It's a great, fun movie. It's not a wonderful adaptation, but I give it a 4 out of 5. So next, I'm going to be talking about the other 1996 version. This one was made for ITV, and it was written by Andrew Davies of the 1995 Pride and Prejudice fame. He does a lot of adaptations. I think he's done like 4 out of the 6 Jane Austen books. He has written an adaptation of them. This is probably lesser known than the Gwyneth Paltrow film. It was a TV movie, it's not a miniseries, so again, it's short and a lot had to be cut for time. This one and the Paltrow version really are polar opposites. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin almost. While the Paltrow film was lighthearted and fun, this one is the darker version of the story, which is really weird for Emma, I would say, because it's not one of Austen's darker novels by any means. He made some interesting and kind of weird choices in this that I'm not very happy with. He focused a lot on the class system, just showing everything that it took to make the lifestyle for the rich, such as Emma and Knightley and all of them, to make that possible, showing the servants, how Mr. Knightley owns everything in Donwell, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I know it's there in the background of Austen's book, but it's not something that I want to see focused on when I watch, you know, a Jane Austen movie. That's not what I really want to be watching. So I wasn't happy about that. I didn't like a lot of the cast. Kate Beckinsale as Emma didn't really seem like she connected with anyone else in the cast. She was, I felt like, a little bit, I know Emma's snobby, but she really emphasized the snob aspect over anything else, over Emma's good intentions and all of that kind of stuff. Mark Strong played Mr. Knightley, and I thought he was god-awful. He was way too harsh in his performance. They didn't seem really like they loved each other at all. Prunella Scales as Miss Bates in it was pretty good, and I thought that Olivia Williams as Jane Fairfax was a standout, and she's actually my favorite still to have played that role in all of the versions I've seen, but they're not enough to save this adaptation for me. I didn't hate it. I liked it more than the 1972, but it's still not great. I give it a 3 out of 5. So now we come to the last version. This is the 2009 BBC miniseries, and this is my favorite one. I actually didn't like it that much the first time I saw it until I got to about the 3rd episode. The first 2 I was like, yeah, this is alright, not great, and then the 3rd one I'm like, oh my god, I love it. And now every time I rewatch it, I love it from the beginning now. On first viewing, I thought elements of it were too cheesy. A lot of the dialogue was modernized. It's all keeping with the spirit of the novel, but some of I'm like, why did they change Austen's dialogue? It still bothers me a little bit, but not as much. I'm still able to, you know, push that aside and love it for what it is. Because it's so long, it's a miniseries, it's able to flesh out all the storylines and keep everything from the book that the versions from 1996 were not. So we didn't really get anything that was truncated or butchered in this version, which I really appreciated. It's also got beautiful music, beautiful costumes and scenery, great budget, so something that, you know, the older 1972 did not have, but mainly I love it for the wonderful casting. At first, Ramla Gary plays Emma. my first viewing, I really had a lot of issues with her. I thought she was too modern and unladylike. Like, her deportment, her posture, and the dialogue they gave her didn't seem right to me for Emma, but I feel like that was done intentionally. I think it was exaggerated a little bit in the beginning to more, like, greater highlight her maturity and development and her character growth, because by the last episode, she is not really like that anymore. Kind of like she's very slouchy, loud, and over the top. But again, I think that was done on purpose to show through a visual medium Emma's character growth. So I do appreciate that more now, even though I have some slight issues with it. I love Johnny Lee Miller as Mr. Knightley. He is definitely my favorite Mr. Knightley out of all of them. He had the perfectly balanced version of the character. The one from John Carson in '72 was too fatherly. Jeremy Northam was too suave and too obvious. Mark Strong was too harsh and kind of mean. And Johnny Lee Miller really gets the right blend of all of Mr. Knightley's characteristics, and he's got great chemistry with Emma, but he's not the obvious romantic hero in the beginning. You do get the vibes of, you know, they're friends at first for a really long time, so, and then it blossoms into romance. So I really loved that aspect of it. The supporting cast is also wonderful. There's only a couple, like, I didn't really like Jane Fairfax in this. She's too mousy, I guess. This is my shallow side coming out. But I didn't feel like she was, you know, good looking enough. And when you see the obviously gorgeous Romola Gary, and that she is somehow, like, envious of Jane Fairfax, like Jane is supposed to be this rival to her, I really don't buy it when, you know, there's this big disparity in terms of looks there. One of my other issues I have with it, other than the modernized dialogue, is the ending. I feel like it was so choppy and disjointed. It had a lot of great individual scenes that were going on at the last act, but they didn't really flow, and I always felt like I was missing something. So yeah, I still really highly recommend this version more than any of the other ones, but I do always recommend that everybody watch all of the versions, especially if they're a die-hard Jane Austen fan like I am. So, but yeah, I give this a 4.5 out of 5. Not quite perfect, but it's very close, and I love it a lot. So I've only got, actually, I was gonna say 2 more Austen in August videos left, but if I include all of the inspired by Austen adaptations, like the Bollywood ones and the modernized ones, it's gonna be 3 more somehow due in the next 2 days. I don't know if that's possible, so I'll probably have to cross over into September, but we'll see when I get there. I'll see you guys later.